All right. As a preliminary matter, this is Woody Knight, Chair of the Newbury Planning Board. Now, permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Now, planning board members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Peter Pecos,
Yes, sir.
Larry Murphy,
Yes.
Scott Kinter,
Yes.
and Steve Mangian.
Yes.
And town staff, Kristen Grubbs, Planning
Yes.
Director. Martha
Hello.
Taylor,
Yes,
Martha Taylor, Special Projects Planner.
yes, yep, here.
Sadie Woodward, Assistant Planner.
Here.
Very good. Good evening. March 4th, 2026. Open meeting of the Newbury Planning Board is being conducted remotely consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, which extends the governor's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 3820, until June 30th, 2027. For this meeting, the Newbury Planning Board is convening by video conference via Zoom, as posted on the Planning Board's agenda, which can be found at the town's website. You may join us by going to http://zoom.us and entering the meeting ID number 832-7141-3056 and the passcode's 108790, or by calling in 1929-205-6099 US and entering the meeting ID number and passcode when prompted. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video and on telephone conference. The meeting is also being broadcast live through local cable channel 9 on Zoom and at newburytv.wixsite.com/TNCTV. And the recording will be available at the Newbury Access YouTube channel. Meeting business ground rules. Before turning to our first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will go down the list of board members, inviting each one by name to provide any comments, questions, or motion. For all attendees, please remember to mute your audio when you're not speaking. On Zoom, use the mute button. On your telephone, use *6 to toggle to mute and also to unmute. There will be an opportunity for public comment and questions during the public hearing. I will see questions and comments from members of the public through the Zoom raise hand function. Video conference participants, to raise your hand, hover over the bottom of the Zoom window below the photo gallery and click on the image of a hand that appears. Please ensure that your name is fully and correctly displayed on the participant list. For telephone participants, to raise your hand in the Zoom meeting, please hit *9 on your phone keypad. Each participant will be called on to provide his or her name and address, and then may ask a question or make their comment. Please do your best to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Your hand will be lowered when you have been given the floor for your questions. I'll afford the applicant and or their representative the opportunity to reply. Should there be a written submittal of questions or concerns, they will be noted for the record. The applicant will be afforded the opportunity to speak if the issues raised have not yet been addressed. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So we have about 5 minutes before our first public hearing this evening. It starts at 7. So I'm going to jump ahead here to wonderfully prepared meeting minutes. Has everyone had the chance to read and review the meeting minutes for February 4th, 2026? Does anyone have any questions or corrections? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for February 4th, 2026 as for 2026.
So move.
Thank you, Larry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pete. Scott, I saw your mouth moving, but you were muted. All right. Has everyone had the chance to review the meeting minutes for February 18th, 2026? And are there any comments, corrections?
Woody,
Yeah.
Woody, this is
Yes.
you. I've lost track of which meeting I didn't attend, whether it was the 4th or the 18th. So unless someone else remembers without going into the meeting minutes right now, I will abstain on both.
Okay.
According to
Thank
the
you,
minutes, you were there for both of them, Steve.
Okay,
The
okay.
draftman.
Thank you. I was confusing it with another meeting. So
Okay,
Okay.
I know you did miss one, so I couldn't recall which one it was either, Steve. And I also forgot, we need to do a roll call vote for the February 4th meeting minutes. Roll call vote, Peter Pecos.
Yes, sir.
Larry Murphy,
Yes.
Scott Kinta,
Yes.
Steve Mangian,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So that's taken care of. And on to February 18th, any corrections or comments on the meeting minutes? Hearing
I'll
none,
move-
I'd entertain, oh, go ahead, Larry.
I was gonna say I'd move approval.
Okay. I've entertained a motion to approve the meeting minutes for February 18th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Scott. Roll call vote, Pete Pecos,
Yes, sir.
Larry Murphy,
Yes.
Scott Kinter,
Yes.
and Steve Mangian.
Yes.
Thank you. And I vote yes as well. So that wraps up meeting approval of meeting minutes. We have a couple minutes left. ZBA liaison and meeting reports. ZBA, that would be Larry. Do you have anything to report?
They really don't, Woody, other than just to say that their regular monthly meeting is going to be March 19th at 7:30 live at the town office building, town hall. But beyond that, I don't have anything to report.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Conservation Commission was last night. We had 5 items on the agenda. They were all requested for continuance. 34 Central was on there. They requested a continuance, so it was a fairly short meeting, and I have nothing to report. MVPC, Kristen, do you have anything to report?
We had the regional planners meeting last Thursday, about a week ago. There weren't any special presentations, but we heard updates from all the department heads. Let's see, a couple interesting things. The GIS technology department is looking a little into artificial intelligence, and asking the communities to fill out a short survey about, are you using AI in your activities? Is the town looking at a policy related to AI? Are there technical advisory needs that communities have? So that's a hot topic these days. And each department updated. There's a great website, I may have mentioned it, called We Are MV, which MVPC has launched to provide support to local small businesses across the region. Tons of good resources on that website. Definitely worth looking out if any of you are running home occupation businesses or other small businesses. There's a lot of stuff for smaller scale economic growth and development in the region. So those are a couple highlights.
Okay, thank you, Kristen.
Yep.
I have 7 o'clock, so we'll get started with the first public hearing. Proposed zoning amendments for 2026 annual town meeting. to consider proposed amendments to the code of the town of Newbury, chapter 97 zoning. Larry, could you please read the public hearing notice that was posted in the newspaper?
I can. The
you.
following Town of Newbury Planning Board public hearing notice was published in the Newburyport Daily News on February 16th and 23rd, 2026. To residents of the town of Newbury and other interested persons, please note that on Wednesday, March 4th, 2026, at 7 p.m., the Newbury Planning Board will hold a public hearing remotely via Zoom pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 5, to consider proposed amendments to the Code of Newbury, to the Code of the Town of Newbury, Chapter 97 zoning as follows. General amendments to existing Articles 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, recommended as Phase 2 of the town zoning recodification, which address administrative updates, internal inconsistencies, provisions that are non-compliant with state statute, regulations, and case law, and language which is unclear. Amendments to Attachment 4 Table of Use Regulations referenced in Article 3 Use Regulations to eliminate inconsistencies between the table and various provisions of the bylaw, including definitions, to revise the level of permitting required for certain uses, and to revise the SPGA special permit granting authority for certain uses. Addition of a new Article 11 on clean energy facilities and related amendments to reorganize the wind energy and solar sections of the bylaw, add a new battery storage section, and address compliance with state and case law. Addition of an inclusionary zoning bylaw to provide a mechanism for creating affordable housing in Newbury as recommended by Newbury's 2023 master plan and 2024 to 2029 housing production plan. The text of these proposed amendments are on file with the town clerk and in the planning office, 12 Kent Way, Suite 210, Byfield, Mass, and may be viewed on the planning board section of the town's website at https://www.newburymA.gov/891/proposed-zoning-amendments. For more information or to obtain a copy of the proposed amendments, contact the planning office at 978-465-0862, extension 336. In accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, which extends the governor's March 12, 2020, order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 20, until June 30th, 2027, this public meeting is being conducted remotely. All persons interested or wishing to be heard relative to the proposed zoning amendments are invited to participate in the hearing remotely at the designated time from their computer, tablet, or smartphone at https://us02web.zoom.us/j/8327-141-3056, passcode 108790, or by telephone by calling 1-929-205-6099 US and using meeting ID 832-7141-3056, or may watch the meeting live on local access cable channel 9 or at www.tnctv.org by Woody Knight Chair, Newbury Planning Board.
Thank you. I thank you for reading them. I'd like to welcome Ian. It's always nice to have you with us. And Kristen, if you want to start presenting slides and for the inclusionary zoning. That'd be
Great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Larry. Thank you, Woody. Martha, we didn't really talk, but do you want to drive the slides, or do you want me to put them up and you can tell me when to forward them?
I've got them here, so I'm happy to pull them up and then.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So let me just. All right, can everybody see those?
Yes.
Yep.
I can,
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Martha. We're gonna do a sort of team effort here with the public hearing. So thanks for kicking us off, Woody and Larry. We working on the town zoning bylaw is one of the responsibilities of the planning board, to continuously review the bylaw and regulations for improvements and amendments, with one annual town meeting in the spring. This is an effort that starts every summer, works through the fall, and then in the winter really gets into high gear. And here we are in our public hearing leading up to town meeting for 2026. So a little more specifically, zoning amendments often need updating due to changes in state law, federal law, changes in regulations that impact our local bylaws. This work, in addition, is focusing on provisions that are unclear or inconsistent, things that have come up over the years of the board's work and reviewing projects. Just keeping note of where there are places in the language of Chapter 97's bylaw that raise questions or are unclear. We keep note of those during the year and then bring them around for amendments in the spring. And then finally, just kind of aligning with best practices, smart growth, different kinds of zoning, innovative zoning that other towns are doing. We kind of watch what's going around the state, focused on Massachusetts. We work closely with the support of Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, who we are fortunate to have here tonight. And just really trying to have Newbury at our local level have the best zoning practices for the kind of growth and development, and environmental protection and all kinds of economic development initiatives that the town is interested in seeing related to the goals of the master plan and other long-range goals. So I won't read all of this, but you can see in the bubbles across the bottom of the slide that this is a process that is guided by the law related to public hearings. We have had several regular public meetings of the planning board to review the amendments and different language related to what you'll hear more about tonight. As I mentioned, we started this work in July 30th. We did some meetings in the fall and particularly this winter. So the first step in February was for the planning board to refer the proposed zoning amendments to the select board. February 10th, the select board in their public meeting voted to refer the amendments back to the planning board to have a public hearing. And now here we are at the public hearing. The next step will be for the planning board at the conclusion of this public hearing to refer the amendments back to the select board to put onto the warrant for the town meeting to consider on May 5th. This year's annual town meeting is going to be held at Triton Auditorium Tuesday, May 5th. So I'll jump to Martha to kind of give the overview. I think that's what we talked about. And then
Yes.
we're going to have, as I mentioned, we'll talk first about the new bylaw, which is related to affordable housing, the inclusionary zoning, and we'll invite Ian to join us.
All right. Thanks, Kristen. So as Kristen mentioned, a good portion of what we're talking about for zoning this year is phase 2 of the zoning recodification. And as a public hearing notice noted, that basically touches all of the articles in our zoning bylaw from Article 2 through Article 11 with various changes to correct inconsistencies and other things, as Kristen mentioned, bring it into alignment with current state law and case law, et cetera. The second part of that bucket really is looking at the table of use regulations, amendments to those. Then we're looking at a new bylaw article focusing on clean energy facilities, and that will involve consolidation of all our clean energy bylaws into one article. It'll be a new Article 11, clean energy facilities. This following articles get renumbered. And this involves an update and reorganization of our ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations bylaw, a new battery energy storage systems bylaw, and then related changes to other sections of the bylaw that refer to these particular sections. And then finally, the new inclusionary zoning bylaw, which aligns with our long-term planning. And we're going to turn it over to Ian first, since he's been kind enough to join us to talk about the inclusionary zoning.
Thanks, Martha, and thank you to the planning board for having me back here tonight. Great to join you all again, if not virtually. So a couple things we want to go over tonight, talking about inclusionary zoning. So as you all may recall, about a year ago when we were working through your housing production plan process, a big goal that came out of it was encouraging, incentivizing, or requiring more affordable housing production in Newbury and in future developments within town. It was also a goal that came out of the MBTA communities zoning process. When we were talking about affordable housing in those districts, a lot of folks expressed a desire to have affordable housing required or incentivized town-wide, in addition to just in the MBTA communities districts. So this first slide here, just showing folks and reminding folks why we're talking about inclusionary zoning and why the town and the planning board really set this as a priority to adopt in Newbury. So a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, we're talking about helping families and seniors remain in the community, folks that maybe are getting priced out of the town, or their children or grandchildren can't afford to move back to town that they grew up in, and ensuring that there are affordable ownership or rental opportunities for folks in Newbury, thinking about seniors maybe selling their home and downsizing, or like I said, young families getting their start in town. Every community in Massachusetts tracks their affordable housing units on what's called the subsidized housing inventory. That's the state inventory that tracks what percentage of your total housing units are designated as affordable, and is the metric that's used to track Chapter 40B development. Some of you may be familiar with those. And so really another purpose of this is to add to Newbury's affordable housing stock and get more affordable units on Newbury's subsidized housing inventory. Like many small towns in the Merrimack Valley region, in MVPC's region, Newbury has a pretty low percentage of their overall housing stock set as affordable. So really aiming to try and add more to the housing stock for affordable housing. And then finally, as I was mentioning at the beginning, the housing production plan outlined a goal of adopting inclusionary zoning, but this was also emphasized in the master plan, when a lot of elements of the master plan in the housing section talked about increasing options for housing for residents and increasing the diversity of housing options for residents across town. Go to the next slide, Martha. So I'm just going to give a brief summary of what inclusionary zoning is and what it looks like in Newbury's bylaw. I'm not going to go through the bylaw section by section. If folks have specific questions, I'm happy to dive into any of those sections and explain any of them, but I know that we've talked about it in front of the planning board before. So just as a recap to get everybody on the same page, what is inclusionary zoning? It's a policy that encourages developers of new housing to include affordable homes along market rate units. Often inclusionary zoning, or I should say always, is either a requirement or an incentive. And so cities and towns will set up different mechanisms within their bylaw to either require or incentivize developers to include affordable units within a larger market rate development. When we're looking at the Newbury's bylaw specifically, one of the things that we're considering is the type of development that happens in town traditionally. Usually you see single family subdivisions or something similar to that. So that is the lens we took when adopting or drafting inclusionary zoning, to make sure that the IZ fit the type of development that you have at Newbury. So a couple things to note about the bylaw and the real crux of it. Number one, we're talking about developments that create 4 or more units. So not just one person building a single family home, but really when you're building a cluster of new homes within town. And if you're building 4 or more units, you're going to have the option for what we're calling a density bonus to include one or more affordable units. Now, just to back up for a second here, what exactly are we talking about when we say affordable units? These are going to be households that are making 80% of the area median income or below. Newbury is set in the greater Boston area to calculate area median income. That is a federal designation through the Office of Housing and Urban Development. So it is not something that can be set locally. So you're in the Boston area for area median income, and anybody making 80% or less of that median income can qualify for the type of housing units we're saying. So in Newbury, I actually don't remember the most recent calculation, but last year's for a one-person household, that's about $80,000 a year because the median income is about 100 grand within that area. So it is relatively high, and you're talking not just about the folks at the lowest level of the income ladder. What you're really talking about are your new grads getting a job, your town employees, your teachers, your police officers, your firefighters, and your residents that are maybe on a fixed income. And so you really do have a high income limit. And so there will be a lot of opportunity for residents that are in Newbury today and looking to move to Newbury to qualify for that type of housing. As a part of this, if developers are building affordable housing, the deed restrictions would be able to mandate that the units remain affordable in perpetuity. So they would never expire. And so if we're talking about single family homes that folks are buying, built into the deed itself would be an affordability mandate. So if someone buys it at an affordable price, they then have to resell it at an affordable price later on if they are to sell their unit. So the crux of Newbury zoning bylaw and the way it is proposed to work in town as drafted right now is that a developer can build one bonus market rate unit for every affordable unit they're providing at 80% AMI. So when we say one bonus unit, what we're referring to is when they're looking at their land as a whole, they might calculate, let's say your zoning minimum is 1 acre lot sizes and they own 10 acres. They calculate that they can build 10 houses on that land. However, this inclusionary zoning bylaw will allow them to build 11 houses if one of those houses is designated as affordable. So trying to incentivize that developer to want to build more. That way they still get a return on their profit, but they're providing an affordable unit for town. In addition to that trade-off, there is also a bonus for developers to provide a unit at 60% area median income. So I know one of the things we talked about when we went through the housing production plan process, the master plan process, and the MBTA communities process is because that bar of 80% AMI is so high in Newbury, like I said, about 80 grand for a one-person household. We know that there are many, many folks at the lower levels of the income ladder that need to access housing. And so one of the trade-offs, in addition to the one bonus unit, is we will give a developer 2 bonus units if they provide a unit at 60% AMI. So in that case, you'd be able to build 12 houses on my example of a typical 10-house subdivision. You'd be allowed 12 houses if one of them is set aside at 60% AMI. Now, just to note, and before we go to kind of the questions and public comment period, one of the things we look at with inclusionary zoning that makes it very challenging in every city and town is how likely it is for a developer to build if inclusionary zoning exists. So what I mean by that is very often, given the high cost of construction, high cost of land, if developers are including an affordable unit in their production of their actual development, it will change their profit margins, often to the point where it's non-profitable to build housing. And if you're not making a profit, they're not going to build anything to begin with. So when we look at a town like Newbury, we know there are development constraints, things like a lack of public sewer, maybe limited water resources, expensive land to build on. All of these factors make it much more expensive for developers to build housing. And so that's why we go the incentive route in a town like Newbury, because the concern is that with a strict requirement, it may be the case that a developer wouldn't build anything at all, as opposed to building something with affordable housing through the incentive phase. Many cities and towns look at their inclusionary zoning on a regular basis. One thing I emphasize with the board is that inclusionary zoning is not a one and done process. And so if your town meeting were to adopt this bylaw at town meeting this year, it would be recommended that, every couple of years you take a look and say, is this working? Is it producing the units we want? And if not, are there things we need to change? And that's simply because market conditions change, on a month-to-month basis, but, more macro on a year-to-year and multi-year basis. And so it's very helpful. Most cities and towns will say, okay, the conditions have changed. we can either require more affordability or less affordability because of what the market's looking like today, maybe 3 years from now. I'll stop there. Like I said, happy to pull up the bylaw and refer to specific sections if folks have questions, but I want to leave time for the rest of your meeting and not go too detailed up front.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Planning board members, do you have any questions for Ian?
I have one, Woody,
Yes.
or to anyone, for that matter. I think the last time we reviewed a draft of this bylaw, if my memory is accurate, it was still pending town council review. Has that happened?
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you, Martha. That's all I had.
Anyone else have questions for Ian?
I have none.
Thank you, Ian.
Yes.
Nice job, Ian.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Do we have, now's the time to, if there's any members of the public that have any questions or comments for Ian? A reminder, that you hit the hand if you're on Zoom, and it's *9 to raise your hand if you're on your telephone. And I can't see raised hands, so if Kristen and Sadie or Martha could note a raised hand, that would be great.
I see some members of the public on, but nobody's raising their hand at the moment. So if, if questions come up later on, Martha and Sadie and I can handle them as well. But that's a great overview, Ian. I think we all can say we appreciate the technical assistance MVPC provides, and particularly on something like this where you have a view on what other towns similar to Newbury have done with inclusionary zoning, places that have had bylaws in place longer than we have. I think we've learned a lot over the years, and Newbury has been able to benefit from that kind of the fact that inclusionary zoning has existed for a number of years. So, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. I think the board has done a good job tailoring this with your support towards the kind of housing Newbury is seeing most often. And yeah, I hope the community supports this going forward. And any questions, send them our way.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. Always happy to join.
Thanks, Ian.
All right. Yep, and thank you, Ian. Have a great night, all right?
You too.
Kristen,
right.
if you want to continue, Kristen, Martha. Oh, and
All right.
before, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have a public hearing for Sunset Club if anyone's here for that. That'll continue right after we're done here with the recodification. Sorry.
Yeah, that's great to note that. So jumping into the kind of the general recodification phase 2, as we're calling it, I'm just going to provide a very high level overview kind of the kinds of things that are being changed in each of the articles. And I want to there may be some confusion about zoning articles and warrant articles. As you know, if you've been to town meeting, there are always articles on the warrant. But our zoning bylaw is also broken down into articles, which are kind of the general heading for each of the different categories. So in this overview, I've provided both the article number and then the section number that goes along with it. Ultimately, we will have 4 warrant articles that will come out of everything that we're talking about tonight. But right now, specifically, I'm talking about the zoning bylaw articles. So the recodification for phase 2 will include, some general administrative and housekeeping revisions, similar to what we did last year. For example, coordinating inconsistent terms. Big one this year is building inspectors, referred to as building inspector in some cases building commissioner. So we're changing that to be building commissioner throughout. We've got some inconsistent formatting that we're changing, and just trying to make the whole thing a little bit easier to use. Article 1, general provisions, there were some major changes to that last year. Nothing is proposed for this year. Article 2 is the article concerning our different use districts, or what we call our zoning districts. We've got some mismatches between the acronyms that we use for the use districts and the names of the districts themselves. In particular, we call what's currently the agricultural residential district, the acronym is RAG, so we're changing it to match, and it's going to be the residential agricultural district. No change in uses or anything like that, it's just a name change. Locations of districts, some of the written descriptions are out of date. They're referencing fiscal year 13 assessors maps and things like that. So we're updating that and making the districts, some of the boundaries descriptions a little bit more consistent with each other, but there are no changes to the district boundaries proposed for this year. There's also an addition of a new section regarding interpretation of district boundaries, which includes how to deal with lots that are split between two districts, lots that are split between two municipalities. We've got lots that overlap Newbury, Newburyport, Newbury and Georgetown, for example. So clarification on that, and also making those interpretations consistent with our current building commissioner's practice. Regulations of use districts, there's a provision in there regarding principals, only one principal structure on each lot. The way it was worded was a little confusing, so we've clarified that. The table of use regulations, there were two separate sections that refer to the table of use regulations. We've combined both of those and reorganized it just to make it more clear and less redundant. Use regulations, there were some district-specific applicable regulations, which were actually a holdover from a very old zoning bylaw, which was superseded when we did an update in 2009, and I think one slightly earlier, that are now redundant, given language that we included last year on special permit requirements, and also redundant with uses that are outlined in the table of use regulations. Article 4 pertains to regulations of overlay districts. On the water supply protection overlay district, we inserted some language to coordinate with the MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay District, which was approved at town meeting 2 years ago. We've updated some outdated and incorrect section references. We had some references that were referring to bylaw sections that no longer exist. Updated procedures for issuance of special permits in the Water Supply Protection District. Plum Island, we inserted some language to coordinate with the ADU bylaw that was adopted at town meeting last year. Clarified the permitting for non-conforming uses and structures to agree with the current ZBA practice, which issues special permits, not findings for these things. So we've just updated the language to reflect that, and deleted the provision regarding use variances, since no use variances are allowed. In the adult entertainment overlay district, proposed change of the special permit granting from the select board to the zoning board of appeals. We added reference to the special permit criteria that we adopted last year, and we relocated definitions from Article 11, which is the administrative article, to this. We're trying to coordinate, move all of the definitions that are related to a specific section or topic to that section, just to make it easier for people to use. Bed and breakfast, proposed change of the special permit granting authority from the select board to the zoning board of appeals, added the reference to special permit criteria. Common driveways, added provision regarding fire department requirements. And large wind energy, again, we moved the definitions related to large wind energy to this section. There's an asterisk here because there are going to be some additional revisions to this as part of the Clean Energy Facilities article that I mentioned earlier. Article 6, dimensional regulations. We clarified and made some updates to notes 1 and 2. For example, the reference to the Great Marsh ACEC was, I think it was an outdated reference. There were some incomplete sentences in there. And we added a note referencing dimensional requirements set forth elsewhere in the zoning, such as overlay districts and specific uses. Article 7, parking, we added some language referring to common driveway provisions in Article 6, noting that those are special permit. Coordinated parking requirements for ADUs and multifamily dwellings with respective ADU and multifamily overlay district bylaws. Also coordinated with site plan review and stormwater management thresholds, and made revisions to the lighting provisions to make them reference dark sky compliance. Article 8, signs. We also made revisions there to the lighting requirements for dark sky compliance, and made a change to the provisions regarding temporary signs to align with current procedures with the select board. Article 9, which is special regulations, which is specifically site plan review. We made changes to site plan review thresholds to include changes that were approved previously to the marijuana establishments, registered marijuana treatment centers, and also added the MBTA multifamily overlay district, which had not been added previously. There will also be some additional threshold revisions proposed as part of the Clean Energy Facilities article. And there were some provisions regarding enforcement and penalty in that section, which were deleted because they're now included elsewhere in the bylaw based on previous town meeting vote, last year's recodification vote. Article 10, general regulations. Provisions are updated and added regarding non-conforming uses and structures, and there will be some additional revisions proposed as part of the Clean Energy Facilities article, specifically getting the small wind energy, moving that to the new article. Article 11, administration, and the written definitions. As we noted earlier, the definitions pertaining to adult entertainment and wind energy were relocated to those specific sections of the bylaw, and there were updates to definitions related to open storage and raw materials. So that's kind of the general phase 2. Then the second part of this is looking at the table of use regulations and making some updates here. One is description of certain uses and levels of permitting were updated to agree with previously approved bylaw revisions, specifically accessory dwelling units and medical marijuana treatment centers. We're also proposing changing the special permit granting authority from the select board to the planning board or the ZBA for certain uses. And this is kind of for 2 reasons. One, these are really land use permits. The select board typically is more involved in sort of the business permits or host community agreements and that kind of level of permitting. And this is also consistent with practices in other communities. It's very rare that the select board is actually a special permit granting authority for use, land use purposes. And some of those uses with the select board were holdover from sort of much older versions of the zoning. So specifically, professional and business offices changed to the planning board, indoor and outdoor recreation areas. Some of them were special permit by planning board, some was select board, all changed to planning board. Membership clubs to the planning board, assisted living life care facilities to the planning board, rehabilitation residences to the planning board, congregate elderly housing to the planning board, electric power generation distribution to the planning board, and bed and breakfast to the ZBA. Also recommending changing the level of permitting for certain uses in certain districts, and it's not consistent across the board, but for example, membership clubs in certain areas, they were allowed by special permit that seemed onerous. So for example, in the business and light industrial districts, it's changed from special permit to permitted in Parker River Marine and Byfield Village Business, which are both denser. It's changed from permitted to special permit. And non-retail bakery, that was not permitted in a couple of districts. We've now allowed that by special permit. Food processing, distribution, and seafood processing and distribution. There was actually, I think, a mix-up between those two uses in the Parker River Marine. So seafood processing and distribution is now allowed in the Parker River Marine by special permit. Outdoor storage of raw materials as a primary use is now not permitted anywhere in the town. It needs to be as an accessory use. Greenhouse or farm stand was not allowed in the Parker River Marine District. That's been changed to permitted, and hotels and motels was changed to be by special permit. We've revised some notes regarding district-specific applicable regulations, overlay districts, and special permits. Added a note regarding mixed-use structures, and there will be some additional revisions proposed as part of the Clean Energy Facilities article. So those are the overview of the changes related to the zoning recodification phase 2. I don't know if you want to stop here and take any questions, or if I should keep going, whatever your preference is.
It would be great to see if it's a lot to digest. So
It is a lot.
Let's see if we have any questions from the planning board. Any members of the planning board have questions on what Martha's presented so far?
Not at this point, Woody, thanks.
Okay,
I'm here.
None here.
very good. So members of the public, do you have any questions on anything Martha's gone through so far? Okay, not hearing any comments? Go right ahead, Martha, continue.
Okay. So the next major change is the creation of a new clean energy facilities bylaw, and this is being proposed to consolidate Newbury's various zoning bylaws related to clean energy generation and storage within one article. So that's small wind, large wind, solar, and also to add a new battery energy storage systems bylaw. Part of this is to bring the town into compliance with recent case law regarding solar and battery energy storage, to align the bylaw with Massachusetts 2024 Climate Act, which reforms the Clean Energy Project and citing permitting and streamlines processes for permitting, kind of breaking it down into permits that would be granted by the local municipality based on the size of the project or state, so that our new bylaw is applicable to what they're calling small clean energy infrastructure facilities, which include solar, anaerobic digestion, or wind facilities with less than 25 megawatts of capacity, or battery energy storage systems known as BESS with a rated capacity of less than 100 megawatt hours. So the amendments include, as I mentioned, this new clean energy facilities article, and the relocation of the large wind, small wind, solar, and creation of the new battery energy storage systems, an update and reorganization of the ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations bylaw to align with new case law, specifically the Tracer Lane case. And I'll just note that case has been very significant in terms of solar permitting. It was a case that ruled that Waltham's zoning ordinance, which limited primary use solar to 1 to 2% of the town-owned industrial land, was not in compliance with Mass General Law 48, Section 3, which is known as the Dover Amendment. which identifies certain protected uses. Basically, it can't prohibit or unreasonably regulate solar or battery energy within the town. And then there'll be some related changes to the rest of the bylaw, table of use regulations, coordinating section references, adding some threshold provisions in site plan review and other sections. The ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations, our current bylaw basically breaks it down by the size of the installation. So anything ground-mounted solar that occupies less than a quarter acre of land is allowed as of right. Installations between a quarter acre of land but less than 2 acres are allowed as of right, but are subject to site plan review by the planning board. And then anything 2 acres or more, it requires a special permit from the planning board. The revision of the bylaw, consistent with the Climate Act and model bylaw, which has been developed, breaks it down into the production capacity instead. So there are 3 categories: small scale ground-mounted solar PV installations, which are capable of producing less than 25 kilowatts of energy. And just as kind of a size benchmark, these typically take up to about 0.03 to 0.05 acres. Medium scale ground-mounted solar PV installations are capable of producing more than 25 kilowatts, but less than 250 kilowatts. And they generally take up to 0.2 to 1 acre. And large scale produce 250 kilowatts, but less than 25,000 kilowatts. And those are sized between 2 acres and 125 acres. The purpose is not changed from what we had before, to provide a permitting process designed to address public health, safety, and welfare concerns, minimize impacts on scenic, natural, agricultural, and historic resources, and provide adequate financial assurance for the eventual decommissioning of these installations. It's applicable to all ground-mounted solar PV installations that are less than 25,000 kilowatts or 25 megawatts. Anything larger than that goes to the newly created Energy Facilities Siting Board. And these do not apply to roof-mounted systems. As far as permitting is concerned, so the medium and large scale installations are subject to site plan review by the planning board. Small scale would be allowed by right. And in addition, unless otherwise noted in our table of use regulations, the medium and large scale require a special permit from the planning board. Submission requirements are same as before: complete site plan showing all the existing conditions, proposed changes, complete drawings of the solar PV installation. But one new requirement is a site suitability report, and this is part of the 2024 Climate Act and the regulations that have been promulgated in relation to those. And this site suitability report provides a framework for generating a site suitability score. EEA is developing a screening tool. It's a geospatial mapping tool which considers climate change, resilience, biodiversity, agricultural resources, carbon sequestration, and social environmental burdens. It's encouraging development of this energy infrastructure in areas that are previously built, previously disturbed, and have low conservation value, and also includes steps for the applicant to take to minimize or mitigate environmental impacts. So that will have to be submitted for any of these installations. Other general requirements have not changed from what we had before. It's still requirements regarding setbacks, height, appurtenant structures, design standards, safety and environmental standards, monitoring and maintenance, abandonment or decommissioning, and financial surety, although this section has been updated to be consistent with the newer model bylaws. For special permits, also requires an open space and agricultural impact report, and the planning board must make certain findings in order to issue a special permit. The special permit criteria that are in Article 5 must be met, and standards regarding impact on adjacent properties, character of the area, etc., traffic and parking, natural, scenic, historic features, lighting and sound, and environmental impact, including tree removal, are all still addressed in the bylaw. So that is it for solar. Are there any questions regarding that before I go on? If not, I'll continue with battery energy storage systems.
I have none. I don't hear any, and there's no raised hands, correct, Kristen?
There's some.
Okay,
All right.
go right ahead, Martha.
Okay, thank you. So this is a completely new new section of our zoning bylaw, or a new article, or not article, but bylaw. And the purpose is to regulate battery energy storage systems, which are large-scale batteries used to store electricity from the electric grid or from solar installations, to protect public health, safety, the environment, and the surrounding neighborhood. We have had some inquiries in town. People have been interested in siting these in a couple of different areas. And currently we have no regulations. So the purpose of this really is to provide some protections and some process for anybody who wants to site one of these in town. Under the bylaw, there are 3 tiers of these BESS. Tier 1 are the small systems, which are primarily solar powered, less than 250 kilowatt hours. They're allowed by right in most zones, except in the Water Supply Protection Overlay District, where they would be requiring a higher level of review and permitting. Tier 2 are the medium systems, 250 kilowatt hours to 10 megawatt hours. They require a special permit. And then the Tier 3 are the larger ones. From 10 megawatt hours to 100 megawatt hours, they require a special permit with stricter siting and safety standards. Design requirements cover setbacks, particularly for the larger Tier 2 and Tier 3, which must be at least 50 yards from lot lines, but 100 yards from lot lines abutting residential districts or existing single, two, and multifamily structures. There are lot size minimums, at least 10 acres for Tier 2, at least 15 acres for Tier 3. No BESS unit may exceed 15 feet, no stacking of units, no increase in noise levels at property lines. Acoustic study is required. Any lighting that's associated with these installations needs to be dark sky compliant, and no light spill onto neighboring properties. And the Tier 2 and Tier 3 BESS must be visually screened. Safety requirements, and this has been a major consideration for these installations, primarily because of potential for fire. They must obviously meet all state building, electrical, and fire codes and be UL certified, surrounded by 8-foot security fencing, a paved emergency access road around the installation, be supplied with fire suppression systems, PFAS-free foam where available. The applicant needs to submit an emergency operations plan with 24/7 contact information, and if there is an emergency or a call from the fire police chief, the operator must be on site within 2 hours. Environmental protections in the bylaw, there's a spill containment layer under all Tier 2 and 3 systems that must be at least 4 feet above the water table. Any failed batteries are treated as hazardous waste, must be removed from the site within 30 days. No Tier 2 or Tier 3 in the Water Supply Protection Overlay District. no synthetic pesticides or herbicides for any tier 1 that may be located in the water supply district, and tree and vegetation removal must be minimized. Required a pre-application meeting, full site plan, engineering drawings, fire safety, operations manual and commissioning plan, and liability insurance for the life of the facility. Owners must file a decommissioning plan, post a financial security, a bond or escrow equal to 125% of estimated removal costs, which is updated every 5 to 10 years. If it's abandoned for more than a year, the town may enter the property and remove it, and the installation must be fully removed and site restored within 6 months of ceasing operation. And the special permit transfers with the property if there's a new owner, but the new owner must notify the building commissioner within 14 days and formally assume all permit obligations in writing. The change to the table of use regulations that will pertain to these systems is here. So small wind energy is currently permitted throughout the town, and that would remain the same. Small scale ground mounted solar photovoltaic is also the same, permitted throughout the town. Medium scale solar PV installations would require a special permit in all districts except for the portion of the commercial highway district, which is located on Scotland Road, and the business and light industrial district. Large scale solar, the same. Battery energy storage, tier 1, is allowed throughout the town by right, but requires a higher level of permitting in the Water Supply Protection Overlay District. Tier 2 battery energy storage, similar to the large and medium scale solar, special permit except in that portion of the commercial highway and the business and light industrial, and same with tier 3. And these are note references, which refer to these notes, which describe those areas where they're allowed by right, subject to site plan review. And that is it for the battery energy storage systems. So finally, just to summarize, as Kristen noted earlier, following the public hearing, or at the end of the public hearing, the planning board will vote to recommend the proposed zoning amendments to the select board for inclusion on the 2026 annual town meeting warrant. We'll be proposing 4 warrant articles to cover all of these, and one will be the general recodification, then the revisions to the table of use regulations, the new clean energy facilities bylaw, and the new inclusionary zoning bylaw. There will be a separate public hearing for another warrant article regarding increasing the ZBA membership from 3 members to 5 members, and that public hearing will open on March 18th. The warrant for the annual town meeting will be reviewed by the Finance Committee and the Select Board on March 24th. The warrant will be approved and signed by the Select Board on the 14th of April. And then, as Kristen noted, annual town meeting is on May 5th at the Triton High School auditorium. So any questions, comments? And thank you very much for your attention. I know that was a lot of stuff and it's very dense. So
Well, I think any questions for Martha?
I'll stop sharing at this point.
Yep. And if anyone from the public wants to ask a question, please raise your hand.
Don't see any raised hands, Woody.
Okay. It's been explained so well by Martha that we don't have any questions. Thank you so much, Martha. That was a lot to get through.
You're welcome. Everybody's just so overwhelmed that they're glazed over.
No, the energies are appreciated from the entire team. Thank you.
You know you've done a nice job, Martha, when no questions.
Thanks.
So that all being said, and thanks again, Martha, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing for the zoning recodification and inclusionary zoning.
You have a motion.
Thank you, Pete. Do I have a second?
Second,
Thank you, Larry. So I'll do a roll call vote. Pete,
Yes, sir.
Larry,
yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. And thank you for all your hard work, Martha, and thank you for the presentation. We'd also have to, I'd also entertain a motion to forward the zoning amendments to the select board for consideration at the 2026 annual town meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Larry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. And that'll be a roll call vote. Pete,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
and Steve.
Yes.
Thank you, and I vote yes as well. Moving on, next item on the agenda would be the public hearing continuance for 2-8 Old Point Road, Level 2 Site Plan Review. Application for as-built construction, constructed changes to the approved site plan of record and proposed new 40 by 40 pavilion structure at the Sunset Club at 2-8 Old Point Road, assesses map U02-0-153A. Owner, The Cottages Commercial LLC, Vincent Godin, manager. Application representative would be Stephen Sawyer from Millennium Engineering. I'd like to welcome Vince. I see Vince, and if Steve's here, I welcome Steve as well. Would one of you like to provide an update on where we're at since our last hearing?
Sure. Steve couldn't make it again. He's at a Newburyport in-person planning board meeting, so I'll be handling this. I guess at the last meeting, the planning board voted to have Kristen start on a proposed document that the board could consider for vote, and I got a chance to review a draft of it over the last couple of days, and I believe it's been sent to the board as well to review and hopefully discuss today. Any comments anyone might have.
Okay, thank you, Vince. Kristen, would you like to share the decision? We can start there.
Sure. Yep, drafted the decision and sent it out to everyone over for the weekend, and I can bring it up.
And if any planning board members have any questions on the decision, just speak up, but go ahead, Kristen. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's great. However, you all want to, if you have questions, we can just dive into questions, or if you want me to kind of go through the draft just in order, we can do that, focusing on what you haven't seen before or what is specific to this project.
Well,
So
Kristen, is this
yeah.
a good place for me to voice a couple comments, or shall we wait till you get to specific items?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with anything. If they're general comments about the decision, it seems appropriate now. If they're more related to a specific part of the decision, we can hold off, whichever.
Yeah. Well, it's probably a little bit of both. So if I may, Woody.
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. I'll say I have some reservations about the mass of the structure and the what I'll call the obstruction of scenic views as seen from some parts of the Plum Island Turnpike and Plum Island Center and coming down off of Old Point Road as well as in particular Sunset Drive. And it's a major concern for me. In addition, I'm also concerned about the lighting. I recognize that this isn't trying to be dark sky compliant, but I think it's still going to be lit up at night as you're coming down the Plum Island Turnpike. And I'm not sure I think I'm also sharing concerns about overnight lighting on the property as well. And a final condition that I would probably like to see added has to do with, I'll call it accessory flagging on the Sunset Club sign itself. There was some flagging there, a couple of months ago, since removed, but the piece of equipment that could be used to attach flagging is still there. So as we can walk through the decision document if you like, but I just wanted to give the other members of the board a heads up. We may have room for further discussion when we close the public hearing and the board is voting among themselves as well. At least I anticipate that.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And Kristen, if you want to start going through everything, that would be great.
Okay. Here, let me move it over here so I'm not staring away from you all. So the start, can you all see that? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Is it big enough?
Yes.
Okay. So this is, as you all know, a site plan level 2 project. So it takes a standard format as any decision of this type. Initially, there's a description of the project. You will see as I scroll through this, some things in highlight that I just are sort of notes to myself more than topics for discussion tonight. So highlighting are things that need to be just fact checked. As you recall, and Vince, you certainly know well, there were initially more than one tax parcel when this project was permitted originally. So I just want to confirm with the assessors what lot number and map number is the address today, and also is it still called 2-8 Old Point Road? I just wanted to double check those with other colleagues. Do you actually,
Kristen,
Vince, do you have
just
a comment on that?
Yeah. So technically it still is 2 tax parcels again, even though for zoning purposes it is 1 parcel. We condoed off for tax assessors purposes the house that sits on the property. So you will see there are 2 assessors, but for zoning purposes it is 1 lot. So there you will probably want to add the second parcel that's on there.
Okay. I'll confirm that with the principal assessor. Thank you. That's helpful. So the description of the project, what zones it lies in, related to zoning and related to environmental resources. And then the initial project application listed these bullets in terms of what was specifically being asked for this site plan. Then the next section is procedural history, and this also needs some
Kristen,
fact checking.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yep.
Yeah,
Of course.
just that last sentence before procedural history looks incomplete. Or am I not quite sure how to read that? I think the
it is
question is
incomplete.
answered. I think the question is answered 3 paragraphs down. It's because the building inspector or the building commissioner required it, but
Yeah, thank you. I think I probably don't need that sentence altogether, but I appreciate the flagging that because as you said down here in this paragraph, it talks about why the level 2 application was submitted. So yeah, I think this can probably just be deleted, but I'll double check that and pull it into the history of the procedure of the review. So related to that, and again, just thank you for your understanding that this is still a draft. There's a little bit of a complicated permitting process with the other boards. So again, I just need to talk with my colleagues in the ZBA and the Conservation Commission to get the details. So that's why this is flagged right here with the note to check the permits and the dates when other boards reviewed and approved components of this site plan review, specifically the pavilion structure. So we will include the factual sort of chronology of permits that have been received for this project. Any questions on that? The rest of this section still a little bit in draft and things are flagged, but we will talk about specifically when this application was filed with the board, which was last May. It was transmitted to colleagues here in the town offices for comments and recommendations. The board opened the public hearing. It was noticed to the abutters. So all of that chronology of the initial application, submission, and review will be fact-checked. And then as this decision gets finalized, we'll put in the final dates here and when the hearing is closed and a decision was voted on.
Kristen, again, if I could make a comment, in that paragraph, that first paragraph, the date January 7, 2025 should probably be 2026.
Yes. Thank you. Great. Okay. So the next standard section of a decision is the submitted materials and information, list of all the materials initially that were submitted as part of the initial application, and then consequent materials that the applicant has submitted to support questions the planning board had, specifically some of the renderings related to the pavilion, how it will look from publicly accessible areas, how it looks relative to other structures abutting on the roads. We had a couple versions of those sketches and renderings, and then additional lighting information was submitted. And there was a stormwater technical review by the town's peer review consultant, Joe Serwatka, with a series of letters back and forth with the applicant and Steve Sawyer, the applicant's engineer. And then we had some support from our special projects planner review of lighting, which was a letter submitted to the planning board to support your review of that lighting and how it.
Still, I'm sorry to continue to interrupt you, but I don't want to forget it. If you go back to item number 6, again, there's a date correction that needs to be made. Draft plans, etc., dated 4/24. What is that? 2025, maybe?
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Yeah, I'll make the date format consistent, so it's easier to track of where we are. That's helpful. Okay, there were no waiver requests related to the site plan submission. Findings we reviewed at the last meeting, so unless there are specific questions related to this, I might just go straight to the conditions. Does anyone have questions related to the drafting of the findings?
Just on item H, Kristen,
Yep.
let's see, where
Here.
specifications are, I'm sorry, I meant capital H items. C and D. I'm sorry, I'm on page 6. I'm probably getting way ahead of you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. We're almost there. Yeah, we'll get to the capital letters
Yeah,
right
I'm
now.
sorry. I got ahead of you.
That's okay.
Well, Kristen, under findings, there's mention of, say, can you move it up a little bit?
Yep. Is that good or?
That's good. I just want to reference section F, and there's one that's down there a little bit further about the exterior light fixtures, minimizing light pollution using dark sky. I mean, I just want to flag those as findings that I have concerns with and don't necessarily agree with. As I said at the beginning of your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to make sure that if I said nothing, it might sound like I was okay with the finding. And we may discuss it some more.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, dark sky compliant is a technical term, and the fixtures the applicant has proposed to use are compliant, dark sky compliant. I think your question is probably related to whether they minimize the light pollution to the degree that you are comfortable with.
Right. And I acknowledge that certain standards may be meant to be dark sky compliant, but I'm thinking about the project as a whole needs to consider, site-specific considerations about where it's located in what is largely a residential area coming onto Plum Island, and site-specific considerations of being on Plum Island may mean, in my opinion, that the dark sky compliant standards may not be as applicable at this site, given what it's going to be like as you come over the bridge and you're seeing a structure which is lighting up the area beneath the footprint of the structure. And so too, just the mass of the building and how that impacts the scenic views of which has to do with condition F, and that again, the site-specific concerns are ones where I find myself not agreeing with statement number F as well.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else have any questions so far on this, or we'll go to the capital letters conditions of approval? All right, hearing none, Kristen, go right ahead.
Yep, and we can go back to anything.
Yep.
So following the findings, the standard section is to give further specificity around actual conditions related to this decision. These first couple are standard in most decisions. The approval by the planning board shall not be construed as approval from any other board. I talked earlier about referencing other decisions that have been made. Approval in letter B is contingent on final approval by all other relevant boards. Any approval, any new approval from another board will require a revision of the site plan as well. So, and that would need to be submitted in writing back to the planning board. So any future changes or updates to the site plan would come back to the planning board. Letter C addresses the actual construction of the new pavilion. So notification prior to construction shall be provided to the town, including the planning director, the conservation agent, the building commissioner, and the police chief at least 2 weeks prior to activity. A construction schedule, including days and hours, shall be approved by the planning director and the police chief and shall include coordination so as not to impede vehicle or pedestrian traffic or access to any abutting properties. So I will definitely review this language with my colleagues as well as with town council to assure that this makes sense. I just wanted to be sure that we acknowledge the location of this parcel being on, you know, the gateway to the island, related to when the work gets done and giving, you know, appropriate notification and safety standards to when that work happens. Assuming the decision is
Kristen?
approved. Yep.
Yeah, Kristen, this is Vincent. I just wanted to give you a little more color on that because I've had a chance to talk to the pavilion company that makes these, and they bring in their own crews to put them up. And in the discussions with them, they would mobilize in the existing parking lot and be able to do everything on site without having to kind of spill outside of the site, at least is what they've told me. And it's about a 3-day job to kind of erect the kit because it comes pretty much in all its pieces, and then they just kind of put it together on site over about 3-day period. So at least what I've been told is it should stay fully on site and just within the parking lot area.
That's helpful. Thank you. So limit of work related to what was just shared, sounds like it'll be on the property, but that's consistent with language that's generally, I imagine was also in the order of conditions related to their approval, the CONSCOM's approval.
Kristen, quick question about item D.
Yep.
As I recall, the original special permit talked or approval for the Sunset Club, several years ago, had a condition about how, this is what we're approving. And if there are any changes, you need to come in and let us know about it before you make any changes. So, and I'm thinking of the merchandise shack, which we're, working on now. That was brought in without prior notification and approval of the planning board. So does that condition apply to what we're talking about with the pavilion, that if any other changes occur, the applicant needs to come in and talk to us before they make them? Or is that condition from 3 or 4 years ago going to apply to this project as well, in which case we don't need to say any more?
Yeah, no, that's a good recollection, Steve, and it is also the way this is drafted includes that in letter S down here. No modifications shall be made without prior approval of the planning board, and
Right.
requests shall be brought.
Thank you for that.
review.
Thank you for that. I'm clearly not remembering all that I've read before, but there it is in number S. So thanks.
Okay, we got a big alphabet here to get through, so no worries at all. I had to look for it. Okay. We are letter F, I believe, or E, the planning board can enter the site during the duration of a site plan approval to determine compliance. Letter F, construction inspections as needed may be carried out by an agent designated by the planning board. And some cases, this would be the peer review engineer. The letter G has specificity around the pavilion itself, 40 by 40 feet, constructed of wood, wooden louvered panels, painted gray to complement the pavilion post, an exposed roof truss. The gable ends of the pavilion shall face east and west. The louvers on the gable ends will be configured horizontally to allow for airflow and maintain a sense of openness as vehicles and pedestrians pass, still providing the sun and rain protection necessary for the pavilion to function as intended. This language is actually consistent with the Zoning Board of Appeals approval. So might be familiar to some of you on the meeting tonight. And again, making sure that the decisions that have been made by the boards for this project, specifically the ZBA special permit, addressed all of these issues. So we are staying consistent. Letter H, lighting. We talked about this quite a bit at the planning board's last hearing on the project. So this is intended to be a summary. I certainly want everyone to read this carefully, including the applicant, and make sure this is consistent with what you have proposed.
Kristen, if this is a good time, I have a couple of comments on items C and D. I assume it's the intention, for example, in C, the restaurant's illuminated sign will be illuminated during business hours. I assume the intention is only during business hours. Is that correct? Was that your intention there?
I don't know if the planning board talked about that, I guess. So I'm glad you brought it up and we should clarify.
Yeah, the same thing with item D. It was my understanding that with the exception of some lights for safety, everything, when the restaurant was closed, that the other lighting would be shut down. But under D, bistro lights under the sails, remind me, what does that refer to?
This was in the submittal from the applicant, so I think I would turn to Vincent to answer that.
Yeah, I think a little bit of a typo, and it was probably because I think I had it as a typo in mine. It's sales, SAILS. It's the kind of shade sails that sit over the main seating area that have the bistro lights.
Okay, all
And
right.
yes, it is the
Okay.
intention. Yeah. So just so you know that for C and D, it is the intention, and it's what we propose that the illuminated sign as well as the bistro light being illuminated only during business hours.
Thank you for that clarification. I thought that was the case. And then just one other point in a small typo in item F, where it says mounted beneath to pavilion roof. I think that should be the pavilion roof structure.
Yep.
Thank you, Larry. Those are good catches.
Okay.
Any
Any
other-
other
any other-
thoughts on lighting? Yeah.
Any other questions?
Have we got any good representation of what the safety lighting would look like? Because if it's on after dark, when the business is closed, I'm trying to imagine how much lighting do we need as opposed to putting a chain across the entranceway to the parking lot, both egress and ingress.
Part of the issue with the chain is, and we've had, is it also it creates an issue potentially with the fire department and being able to access the site.
Sure.
But it's not so much necessarily for if we chain it off and maybe that keeps vehicles off of it. It's more people walking through it as well as employees leaving later at night, um, feeling safe walking out of there and having adequate light for, trips and falls and just general safety. So it's not so much just keeping vehicles out as just creating a safe environment for people to walk through
Right.
it
Certainly
and leave the
yes.
site.
Yes, certainly I can appreciate we want the employees to be able to walk out without encountering a tripping hazard and like well maybe we could put a timer on the lighting so that it would go off, in an hour or two or 2.5 hours after the employees are done doing their cleanup and able to move on to another place.
I mean, the lighting we're talking about in the parking lot specifically, I mean, it wouldn't even be seen from the road. And the little bit of lighting along the path I mean, you won't even be able to see it compared to the rest of the lighting that's on the road from the other light. I mean, we're talking enough just to illuminate, not being able to see the ground and not trip on items. There's no pollution, extending beyond the property for this. And it's been honestly part of my concern about it is just I was advised in talking to my insurance company that I do need to provide basic lighting for liability purposes.
Okay, thank you.
If there's no other
Woody,
questions,
there's
we'll
a raised hand. Do you want to take?
please identify yourself and ask your question or comment pertaining to what's been discussed so far. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Chair. Eric Svan, 14 Old Farm Way, ZBA Chair. The Massachusetts State Code, Building Code requires a minimum of 1 foot candle for egress path lighting.
Thank you for that fact. Anything else, Eric? Are you good?
Nope. Just
All right. Thank you, Eric, very much. All right. If no one else has any questions on what's been discussed so far, we'll continue. Kristen, please.
So this letter E is accurate and complete to everyone's satisfaction. Ingress, egress lighting, including small lights on the fence of the parking area, will be maintained for safety purposes.
Well, Kristen, just to clarify, maybe we can ask Eric, does that Massachusetts code allow for effectively a timer? Or does it require that the lights be on all night long? I'm thinking back to a timer that would shut off after a couple hours.
through the chair, if I may.
Yes, go right ahead, Eric. Yes.
Thank you. I think the intent, as Vincent said, is that if people are crossing or the unexpected, that 1 foot candle at a minimum just provides a level of safety for everybody. It has to be on the ground level, so that the lighting for that purpose could be fairly low and fairly screened. It doesn't have to be on a light pole. It could be something else that's fairly low to the ground and really just putting the light on the ground.
Okay. Thank you for that. And Woody, may I beg your pardon for making that mortal sin of directing a question to one of the other participants rather than having the question go through you to Eric.
No, that's fine, Steve. We're as a planning board and Eric's here. He provided some information and it's fine. Everything's good. And if Kristen, you want to keep going, that would be great.
Letter I was discussed during the public hearing related to signage. So there shall be no signs, flags, kites, or banners hung from the pavilion. The sides of the pavilion shall remain open at all times. No side flaps shall be allowed. Letter J. As shown on the site plan, there shall be 2 removable storage containers located on the property, which shall not be permanently installed on site, but removable in times of flooding. The 8x20 container trailer is to be used for storage and sale of restaurant merchandise, and shall have no other items sold. The 30x7 removable containers shall be for storage of restaurant furniture and supplies.
Do we need, these are the removable storage containers. Do we need to capture that they need to be on blocks? And if already stated in there, am I overlooking it? Go ahead, Vince.
Woody, that was addressed in the Conservation Board that they did require that, so that is in that approval when they approved it,
Captured in
that
the
it had to be
document.
raised.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's in conservation documents, so there's no need to reiterate it here, I guess. All right, thank you, and thank you, Vince, for that. I knew it was stated before, and I just didn't know if it needed to be on here or not. It was more asking of a question, but if it's captured in the conservation, because it is a conservation issue, it's a moot point.
I'm not uncomfortable making sure the language is consistent with how the CONSCOM order of conditions stated it, to stay consistent with making sure that the boards are consistent. So I can certainly check that with Mason.
Okay, thank you, Kristen.
And Woody, do you know if the
Yep.
Concon, required a plan? And that it's one thing to say these sheds can be moved in times of flooding, but should there be an expectation that one of the boards or whatever, also received a plan on how that was going to be accomplished, and whether that plan would have required already received approval from, say, the fire department or the police department or the emergency responders when we've got flooding going on? I don't think we've seen a plan, but maybe might inquire whether there is a plan that other boards have seen.
I know that it was under peer review through conservation with Joe. We went on a site walk with conservation. So I would assume it was captured in a plan, but I don't personally recall. But I believe it was all captured and calculated with Joe's peer review through conservation.
Are you using the word plan as in terms of site plan, or like an emergency management kind of plan, or?
Probably emergency management kind of plan that, whether it was 18 months ago, last time we had a good flood down on the island. If a decision was made, how was the decision made that the sheds, and for that matter, the mobile kitchen, need to be moved, and who's going to do what? So it's an emergency management plan, as you asked.
I don't know, Vincent, if
I'm not aware of an emergency
yeah.
management, and I don't know if Eric's still on, maybe they did it through ZBA, but I know that there was just the buildings had to be removable in case of act of nature at some point here. I do recall that, but
I can look into that.
go ahead, Vince.
I can jump in. There was never a actual specific what you would call plan. What we've done is we've had discussion. We have a number of people that we know that have large trucks or bobcats available on the island that and actually we're in the process of looking to purchase after this snow season a Bobcat ourselves that would have the capability to raise those if needed. And we have adjacent property that is outside of the flood zone. But in past events, the water has not come to those containers, and it hasn't been anywhere close to. While some has gotten onto the property, it has not come close to the actual containers.
So, Woody, if I could,
Oh, yes, go right ahead, Pete.
it's interesting because, I think this was all kind of assumed by the planning board that there was a contingency plan or a plan for this in case things needed to be moved. And I'm not sure if that falls under our wheelhouse, or I would have fallen in conservation. I don't know if it would fall into ZBA, but if there were to be a significant flooding situation, how would it be mobilized? And I know what a Bobcat can lift, and I don't think it would be able to lift the buildings that we're talking about unless it was a very large Bobcat with a lot of counterweight. So you'd need actually a large machine to lift and move. Not expecting that type of a flooding situation, but if we're talking about it, and one of the reasons that we've put accommodations into our condition, then it's almost as though there should be some sort of reference to how that should be activated. And I don't know what that answer is. But since we're discussing it, it leads to the path of it should go somewhere.
And thank you, Pete. And I do recall at one point, maybe Vince or Steve was mentioned ramp trucks, so that they would be moved by a ramp truck. But
Yeah,
I
the containers that, like, as an example, the merchandise shack, when that was raised to put on um to to move it off the ground a few months ago, that was just a Bobcat that was able to lift it because it's literally been gutted and there's just nothing in it. It really isn't that particularly heavy, and what we're going to have for storage sheds. If you take the stuff out of it, those sheds themselves are actually very, very light. Now, the kitchen would be a bit of another story that would require something a little bit larger. There's a company in Salisbury that actually did the initial install of it, that we have had discussions with in the past, that would be available on an emergency basis. They've told us we've never had to have that discussion with them, but when they did make the installation, that was something that we did ask them, but we've never had to make that call.
That's great, Vincent. So I think if you maybe just put some sort of plan together, make it administrative sort of component that can fit into this, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure, we'll do.
Pete, you broke up. Will you say that again? I didn't hear what you just said. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Sorry, Woody. What I said was that sounds like a great plan to put something in place that Vince can have documented, and it can be to kind of fall into an administrative component of this decision.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry you broke up in the middle. So thank you.
Woody,
Go ahead, Steve.
Woody, if I may, I think Pete's suggestions is a good one. In thinking out loud, let's say the merchandise shack got flooded before it could be moved. That would be unfortunate, but perhaps not something that would really result in an emergency firsthand. And I'm wondering whether we should also ask about, and some of you were on the planning board back when the first approval was given for the Sunset Club project. If flooding is a concern, do we also need to have the same thinking apply to the kitchen? I realize the kitchen is not part of the permit that's being discussed right now, but it seems to me that might be something we'd want to loop back to if we're going to talk about having some discussion about contingency plans. And right now, as I understand it, this discussion, the mobile kitchen emergency response hasn't been shall we say, documented. And maybe this is an opportunity to do it or to go on our to-do list for other things down the road.
Vince, is that something you can capture into the Met Shack into the administratively into the Met Shack as well? How the
That was my plan, was to address all the movable structures, so that'll be included in the plan as well.
Okay, thank you. Is that satisfactory, Steve?
Sure is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions from planning board members, we can continue, Kristen.
Sure. Let's see.
I saw you
So
taking the notes there, so that's great. Sorry.
that's okay. Yeah. So letter K, exteriors of the merchandise shack and storage container shall have no signage. That's already been enforced by, excuse me, through the sign bylaw by the building commissioner. I know we've talked about removing the name of the restaurant from the merchandise shack mural. I think it was last summer that was on a part of the public hearing discussion.
Is that something that's been removed at this point, Vince, or is that still there?
No, we were waiting for just the final kind of wrapping everything up before, just to make sure that what we were planning on doing and what we had shown was approved. That is something that'll definitely happen as soon as the snow melts and we can get the artist out there to kind of cover that up and modify it to remove the restaurant sign or restaurant name on there so that it is no longer signage.
Yeah, it becomes a mural. Okay.
Yeah, and Woody, I don't know if that might need to take place on the garage building as well. What was the original garage? Yeah, because I think there's a sign on the top of that as well.
Is that something that still exists as well, Vince?
I believe the sign on the garage was an approved sign by the building inspector. The ones that we were addressing were on the storage container as well as the kitchen container, were the ones that he brought up that needed to be removed on both sides of the kitchen container.
Okay, thanks for the clarification, Vince.
Yep.
And I understand weather permitting. I guess this is a question for Kristen. Do we have to take any action for this, or is that something that we could just take Vince's word for it, that it'll be removed as soon as he can get someone out there to do it, weather permitting? Or is there a way to capture that in this decision?
Well, I think so Peter's the enforcement officer, so I can certainly talk with him about assuring it's done.
Okay.
I think the way letter K is written now is if it's not done, it's a violation of the decision.
Okay, in the future, all right. Thank you. I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure that everything's addressed. Yeah, that's all.
Yep.
And thank you, Vince. All right, we were under what, K or I? I.
Let's see, HIJKL.
Oh, L, excuse me.
So, I had a little bit of a question in my mind as I drafted this, whether things that were conditioned in the original decision needed to be repeated. They still stand. That decision is not, there's nothing null and void about the initial decision. So I think legally they don't need to be repeated, but I just kind of put this as a placeholder related to the hours of operation. Particularly with the new pavilion, it may be worthwhile naming what those hours are, but I haven't had a chance to look back at that.
If I could, Woody, one
Yes, go
approach,
ahead.
Kristen, might be just a a short sentence or in there to the effect that except as modified herein, the terms and conditions of the original site plan approval of 2021, probably put the date in, are ratified and affirmed and shall remain in full force and effect. Something to words to that effect.
Oh, you got to read it again, Larry. I liked it.
Okay, except as modified here, except as specifically modified herein, the terms and conditions of the original site plan decision dated blank 2021 are ratified and affirmed and shall remain in full force and effect. And then you probably, the first sentence of that L is probably redundant then.
Okay. That works for me. Is there any discussion about that?
We're missing the F in of after conditions.
Okay.
And then if Larry, if you want to read it, if that's what you just said. please. It's all
Just
pretty-
modified in terms and conditions of the original decision. I would put in the date of the decision. I know it was 2021, but whatever the, you know, whatever the actual date is, ratified and affirmed and shall remain in full force and effect.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would address your concern about that and make it clear that we're not, except for any modifications made in this decision, the other decision stands as drafted, as written.
Thank
Okay.
you, Larry. Your wisdom on that was great. And the only thing missing from that, Kristen, would be the actual date. So that's just so you have a side note.
Is are you going to have town council review this as the form, Kristen?
Yep. As I mentioned earlier, there are a couple specific things, but I know the planning board usually requests that. So I did want to make sure we talk about that tonight.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay, so letter M may, so currently it's written tables and chairs shall be moved beneath the pavilion as needed for use. Oh, a little redundant. As needed for use for sun or rain protection, there shall be no additional chairs, tables, or other furniture installed beyond the seating approved by the 2021 decision. A little redundant relative to the language we just added, but I know this was discussed during the public hearing, so open to any feedback on this one.
I think it's good and should remain. It captures previous decision, site plan decisions. So speak up if anyone else has anything to say on it.
Letter N, parking on the property shall be accessory solely to the proposed, not proposed. Solely to the restaurant use and shall not be used for any other purpose. I believe that was language from the first decision. And I know it's been talked about during this hearing. So again, I'm just sort of bringing it forward for discussion.
Yeah. Kristen, I have mixed emotions in raising this. I happen to be a member of PETA, and in talking to PETA managers and the like, it's my understanding that though there's probably a benefit for PETA, PETA is being allowed to use the restaurant when it's not open for additional parking if they need it for some reason. And it's not something I really want to push on, but I just want to note and see if the board has any comments on that, Peter being allowed to use the restaurant parking in some instances when the restaurant isn't open.
I don't see a
What do
problem
you-
with it at all. I think it's just neighbors helping out neighbors. Thanks, Steve.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Otherwise, continue, Kristen?
Mhm.
Well, so we are striking this.
Well, there were discussions in the past, and Vince clearly stated that he wouldn't have beach parking in his restaurant parking lot, and he had the cottage up the street for some of that. So I don't have any comments either way, and I respect what Peter just says. In times of events, they're neighbors are neighbors, but I don't know. I guess that might be a question for Larry, is if that fits in there and if it should stay.
Really, it's really up to the board as a whole. I don't have any strong feelings about it one way or the other. I guess probably the concern would be that if you're using it as beach parking during normal business hours, where are your customers going to park? But on the street, you know?
I recall that, Larry, and I do recall like parking for a fee, using the restroom and parking for a fee. I remember that being
Yeah.
brought up in the past. So I just don't know how it's supposed to be worded and if it should be striked or amended to what it says now. I'm not.
I mean, I imagine that the owner would have an incentive to reserve the parking for their customers, the restaurant customers, but I don't know.
We've had discussions in the past, and I think Vince also, and correct me if I'm wrong, Vince, but I think Vince also said that if there was a situation where they needed more parking for the restaurant, they could use the parking up the street. So
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Well, if you want me
it
to
should
just
be
jump
worded.
in there, I mean, we don't
Go
use
ahead,
it for beach parking, never intend to. So if you wanted to have that specific language in there, the store down the street's approved for that. On top of that, I mean, from the zoning language, we're not allowed to charge as a commercial parking lot as our use. So it's already kind of, I think, addressed with the fact that it is not an approved use, while, like Peter's mentioned, help letting our neighbor, because there's a funeral or something and they need some extra parking for an hour or two, if we're not charging them, is not considered being a commercial parking lot. It's just no different than if I own the house next door and said, yeah, you can have a few people park in my
How about it shall
driveway.
not be, I'm sorry, Vince, I didn't mean to speak over you.
Yeah, go
How
ahead.
about it just shall not be used for paid parking, something like that?
I saw she was plucking something in there for commercial use. So would that cover paid parking? Well, you want to put paid parking in?
It's up
'Cause
to
I
the
guess-
board. How you just, I just,
Let me read it again.
parking shall be accessory
To the
to
restaurant.
the restaurant use and shall not include beach parking or other paid parking use. How's that?
Vince? Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, it seems great.
Okay. I think that's better than what was there previous.
Mhm.
It addresses that issue.
Yeah.
And then that way neighbors can still be neighbors.
Yep. And let me add, I, in full agreement with trying to promote good neighbors. And I raised the issue in part just so that we're all clear about what's allowed and what isn't allowed, so that we don't get a phone call or someone says, what's going on? seeing a bunch of cars in the restaurant parking lot when the restaurant isn't open. That way, everyone's in the clear and we have an understanding of what's up and allowed, and being good neighbors and being good planning board drafters.
I'll have a tooth in it tonight, Steve.
Yep.
All right, if that's worded correctly and makes sense, we'll move on, Kristen. We're
Okay.
getting there.
We're getting there. Letter O, entertainment shall be permitted pursuant to the entertainment license issued by the select board. I think that's an annual process. Is that right?
Yep.
That's, yeah. Letter P, bike rack shall be located near the restaurant entrance to provide safe use in relation to vehicle traffic. I feel like that's probably unnecessary, but it is a change on the site plan to where it was located previously, so figured I'd put it in.
It captures it, so I have no problem leaving that if everyone else is fine with it.
Landscaping and rain gardens shall be maintained and managed according to the Conscom approvals for the sensitive dune and ACEC conditions. I will spell that out. And to enhance the appearance of the property. I think on our site walk, we looked at some of the changes from the original site plan about the plantings. So I wanted to just capture that.
Very good.
And then we're sort of into the boilerplate. Our S&T are found in most decisions that I've read. Letter R is recording of the certificate of the town clerk, and the decision at the registry of deeds shall be required prior to the issuance of the building permit. Letter S, no modifications. Well, we talked about this one previously. Modifications shall be made without prior approval of the planning board. And site plan approval for this project shall lapse after 2 years from the date of issuance. Unless
You know what
a
I would,
request for extension.
if I may, that section L that we dealt with, the language about except as modified, the prior decision stands.
Yeah.
That type of language generally goes towards the end of the document. So I would move that and put it between S and T.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Larry. I'm not sure how you do that, but Kristen has all the buttons there.
I'm gonna just put a note and
Okay,
have you
Great.
all have to watch me play with formatting.
Town
Okay.
council will look at it, and if she's satisfied with it, I'm sure it'll be fine.
yep.
That's it. Decision
that's fine,
page.
Okay. Any planning board member questions before I turn it to the public? Okay. Do we have any public? Oh, do we entertain questions from the public for the decision, Kristen?
No.
No, okay, very good. Sorry for that confusion. Is everyone comfortable with this decision as amended here? Based on the fact of review of town council?
Well, do we need to see a final document to vote on, or if we're going to vote tonight, I think you can tell I have reservations.
Well, what I might suggest is that we vote tonight, and subject to any modifications by town council, we would proceed with this draft.
I'm comfortable with the draft as amended. Larry and Scott? Are you comfortable with that?
I am.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan with town council.
Okay.
And would you like a motion to accept the draft with the input from town council? As
Yes,
drafted?
I'd entertain, Pete, I would entertain a motion to approve the level 2 site plan review application for 2-8 Old Point Road, contingent on town council approval.
You have it.
Thank you, Pete. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Larry. We'll go to a roll call vote. Peter Pecos,
Yes.
Larry Murphy,
Yes.
Scott Kinter,
Yes.
and Steve Mangian.
No.
And I vote yes as chair. So that has it at that. Vince, good luck with everything, and I'm sure you and Kristen will be in contact, and we're gonna send it off to town council for final approval.
We also
Great.
need to
Thank you very
close
much.
the public hearing.
Oh, yes, we didn't
One
close
more
the public
vote.
hearing. That's why I was confused earlier. I apologize. I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing for 2-8 Old Point Road. The Sunset Club.
Well, Woody, if town council should make any substantive changes, wouldn't it have to come back to us?
Oh, yes, it would, Larry. That's a good point.
Maybe we should continue the public hearing one more date and get a final, so we can, look at the final decision and then close the public hearing at that point.
Okay, so we'll send this off to town council. I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to, it would be
I just, you already took a vote to approve the decision following town council review. So I think you need to modify your vote if you are changing it and subject to any substantive changes.
Okay, Larry, you expressed the concern that if there was a concern that needed to be addressed with the decision by town council, that we'd have to review it. So, to modify this, because we voted to approve it based on town council review, I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to March 18th so that the decision can be reviewed by town council and for approval on the 18th.
Okay, to Kristen's point though, do we have to revoke the earlier approval? I'm not sure.
Okay, and now I'm having trouble with the verbiage.
We're in a procedural quagmire here.
Yes, we forgot to close the public hearing so that we could discuss the decision, I believe. So that's where I got confused earlier and asked the public if they had any comments. So if you would like to, Larry, please, if you would like to make a motion with the verbiage, I would entertain a motion.
I'm sorry, the motion to what, Woody?
Entertain a motion with the correct verbiage, I would entertain your motion.
Okay, trying to think.
Well,
I think you would like to amend my motion.
Oh, there you go. Maybe you might want to amend your motion, Pete.
I would amend the motion that the draft decision will be finalized after a review of town council.
I'd second that.
Okay.
Roll call vote. Pete,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Now we entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to March 18th. I'd entertain that motion.
I'd move to continue the public hearing to March 18th, 7:15 PM via Zoom.
Discussion before we get there.
Yeah,
I just want to check to see what our schedule looks like on the 18th, because if I
Good-
remember
good point.
correctly, we have a pretty full docket that night.
okay, we can consult with Kristen on that and keep in mind that maybe this won't take a lot of time if there's nothing substantial pushback with town council, but I'm willing to hear.
On the 18th, you have two other public hearings. You have the zoning amendment related to the ZBA membership, and which is new, and you have the continued public hearing from 15 Central Street subdivision. And yeah, there are a couple other old business items on that agenda.
Okay. What's the feeling of the board? Should we schedule it for the 18th, or would you like to move it for another 2 weeks?
And my only other concern is whether council will have time to do this within this week. That's the only other
Good
concern.
point.
I do have
Yeah.
time with her
Hey,
on
April.
Monday, so I would lean towards the 18th.
Okay.
And if we don't have it, we don't have it.
Okay.
It's a
Yeah,
quick
yeah.
vote to continue, but I think it's in good shape based on our discussion we just had, and hopefully the time I can have with her next week would have it ready in time for a final review before the 18th.
Very good.
Okay. Sorry for all the confusion, everyone. I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for 2-8 Old Point Road to March 18th.
Make that motion at 7:15 PM via Zoom.
Yes, at 7:15 PM via Zoom. Thank you, Larry. I have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Scott. Roll call vote. Pete,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes,
Scott,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. We'll see you on the 18th, Vince. I'm sorry about all that.
No problem. Thank you.
Yep, have a good night.
You as well.
Thank you. That being said, as we approach we've passed the 9 o'clock hour. The only other thing, because we did meeting minutes and liaison reports earlier, the only other thing on the agenda is planners report updates from Kristen and Sadie.
Let's see. Thank you for those of you who came out for the snowy, slushy visit to the Borrego solar property. We got to see the solar panels. We did not get to see the area of the property where the screening is proposed. So the discussion at the meeting was to schedule another site walk after the snow has melted, and we can walk to the property and also get permission from some of the abutters potentially to view the area from their property. So I think we talked about a month out. We're hoping early April. We didn't set a date, but I will keep the board posted and stay in touch with the applicant. We also took a look at 15 Central from the road frontage and viewed there is now painting of an orange arc on the proposed entrance of the subdivision road for the 15 Central subdivision. So those of you who weren't able to attend the site walk, you should be able to drive by and take a look at those. You can see either side of the proposed road. And as just mentioned, that hearing is coming back on the 18th. They are revising their stormwater report, as was discussed at the last hearing. So I let them know that we need those materials by the Wednesday before, which is next Wednesday. So they're going to keep me posted, because depending on when they get me the materials, it'll go back out to peer review. And if there isn't time to get new information, then potentially they would request a continuance of that hearing. So that's a little pending, and we'll keep you posted on that. Let's see. I think that's it, except I did want to mention, you may all know, but I am not going to be at the next meeting. So I appreciate Martha stayed on for some of the discussion today, and she'll be supporting our very able assistant planner, Sadie, who will be helping you all with the meeting on the 18th. So just wanted to remind people of that. I'm going on a trip with my 84-year-old father. Sadie, do you have anything you want to share with the board?
Sure. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Excited to see you off and see you back, Kristen. But that sounds like a really fun trip. I'm excited to hear and see pictures. I thought I'd just remind everyone about the Plum Island Turnpike meeting coming up on the 11th, next Wednesday. We talked about it at the last meeting, but just wanted to remind people it's going to be more of an information session. It's Ty and Bond is going to be presenting some different engineering options for the Turnpike feasibility study, and it's more to educate the public on the efforts that are going on at the moment, and yeah, so feel free to join. I'll be there. It's at 5:30 on the 11th at the Parker River Refuge headquarters on the Turnpike. So.
And it is it is in-person meeting, but we are going to be videotaping it. So there will be the slides and the video available after if people aren't able to attend. But there's not a Zoom option.
Very good.
But
All good stuff. Thank you, everyone, and I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Nobody wants to go.
Okay, thank you. Roll call vote, Pete, Larry,
Absolutely.
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Have a good night, everyone, and thank you for your
Good night.
participation this evening.